The stars had witnessed countless wars, but never anything like this. In the vast darkness between worlds, humanity was about to announce its presence to a galaxy that had long dismissed them. The blue marble called Earth hung peacefully, its children having prepared for over 2 centuries, building something in the planet's depths that would shake the foundations of every empire. Captain Rebecca Stone stood on the observation deck of the Terran Defense Station Olympus. She watched as the alien fleet materialized from hyperspace like locusts. 170 vessels, gleaming with the silver-green hull plating of the Crithian Dominion. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat, arranging themselves in a siege formation that had conquered 47 worlds. The Crithians were an ancient, brutal race. Their philosophy was simple: submit or be erased. After observing Earth for 3 decades, they decided these young starfarers would make excellent additions to their labor force. Beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Cassius Wraith stood in his command center, surrounded by data from every corner of the solar system. He was a massive man, with a voice that could freeze fire. For 30 years, he had prepared for this invasion, knowing it was inevitable. The question was never if, but when. The first strike came without warning. Crithian plasma cannons obliterated the orbital stations. Rebecca barely made it to an escape pod before Olympus disintegrated around her. Tumbling through space, she watched her home become scattered atoms. Rage filled her chest, but beneath it ran a current of grim satisfaction. The enemy had just made their final mistake. On Earth, cities went dark in orchestrated sequences. Billions of people moved through underground passages built over decades, tunnels so deep no orbital scan could detect them. These were not mere shelters. They were migration routes into the true heart of human civilization, where the real work had been happening all along. Children and the elderly moved with practiced efficiency, having trained for this evacuation hundreds of times. General Victoria Blackwood coordinated the evacuation from Deep Command, 15 kilometers beneath the Earth's crust. Around her, technicians monitored the descent of Earth's entire population. 92% evacuated, 95, 98. The numbers climbed as, above them, the Crithian fleet began its systematic destruction of surface military installations. From his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, Lord Commander Thaxius observed the destruction. This was to be his final, simple campaign. He watched with mild interest as human bases evaporated under his weapons. Their technology was crude, their defenses laughable. He expected a surrender within a week or 2. But then, the sensors began reporting anomalies. The human population was vanishing from thermal scans. Power grids were shutting down with deliberate control. Most disturbing of all, deep ground sensors detected movement at impossible depths, massive excavations that shouldn't exist. For the first time in 300 years of conquest, Thaxius felt a stir of unease. Weeks passed. The Crithian fleet maintained its blockade, demanding surrender. But Earth remained silent on the surface, a ghost world refusing to acknowledge its conquerors. Underground, in facilities that made the surface look like a historical curiosity, humanity worked. They toiled in forges with temperatures rivaling a star's core and in assembly bays the size of cities. They used materials gathered from the far reaches of the solar system, asteroids reborn as components of something unprecedented. This construction had taken 197 years. Generations had lived and died in the deep places, building according to plans refined over countless iterations. They had known this day would come. They had prepared with the patience of a species that understood survival was about the future, not just the present. And now, as the Crithian fleet grew restless and confused in orbit, the moment of revelation approached like thunder gathering on a distant horizon. The silence was about to be broken, and the galaxy would finally learn what it meant to awaken a sleeping giant. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for the next chapter. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, where the pressure could crush submarines into scrap metal. Quantum reactors hummed with a power that could light up entire star systems. In the primary control chamber, Dr. Helena Voss moved her weathered hands across glowing holographic interfaces. She was 68, and her entire life had been poured into this single project, sacrificing sunlight, family, and every simple comfort for the cold, hard necessity of human survival. Her gray eyes, reflecting the blue light of the reactor cores, scanned the energy buildup. Everything had to be perfect. There would be no second chances. This desperate plan, the Hurricane-Class Battleship program, began with her grandfather. He was one of the first to hear the alien signals, long before the world knew. While nations debated whether to send a friendly hello or stay completely silent, a small secret group of scientists and military leaders understood a darker truth. Any civilization that could cross the stars wouldn't see us as equals. They'd see us as resources to be taken or a threat to be eliminated. And so, in absolute secrecy, they began to build. Earth's true industrial might was moved underground, piece by piece, while on the surface, life went on. A beautiful, fragile illusion. In the lower decks of the ship, Lieutenant James Park watched the structural integrity sensors. At 29, he was one of the youngest on the crew. He was born in the deep cities, trained from birth for this exact purpose. He had never seen a natural sunrise, never felt real rain, never walked on grass growing in actual soil. His whole life was one long preparation for this moment, and he felt no bitterness. Everyone born in the deep knew their purpose. They were the shield, the silent guardians. The people on the surface had lived in peace, because people like James had given up a normal life to forge humanity's sword. 143 days after the Crithian fleet arrived in Earth's orbit, the tremors began. Lord Commander Thaxius, leader of the alien armada, was reviewing reports when his sensor officer announced impossible seismic readings from the South Pole. It was like an explosion powerful enough to vaporize a small country, but there was no radiation, no heat, just a massive crack in the planet's crust. Thaxius ordered his ships to investigate, but before they could even move, something began to rise. The Antarctic ice shelf cracked open like an eggshell. Chunks of ice the size of mountains broke away as a colossal shape pushed its way up from the depths. At first, it was just a column of pure darkness, a void that swallowed light. Then, its form became clear, and on the bridges of 170 Crithian warships, a cold dread began to set in. What rose from the frozen heart of Earth wasn't just a ship. It was a statement, a declaration written in impossible metal and raw power that humanity would bow to no one. The Tempest Wrath was 15 kilometers long, bigger than any space station the Crithians had ever built. Its hull was made of compressed neutronium, a material so dense a handful would outweigh a mountain, all held together by gravity fields that literally warped space around the ship. Strange patterns shifted across its surface, a quantum-locked armor that existed in multiple dimensions at once. And along its sides, weapon arrays bristled like the spines of a leviathan, each one capable of channeling enough energy to shatter a moon. On the bridge of this behemoth stood Captain Rebecca Stone. She had watched her own space station burn, destroyed in the opening moments of the invasion. Rescued by a deep space patrol, she now commanded the Tempest Wrath. She and her 500 crew members were connected to the ship through neural interfaces, becoming extensions of its vast, semi-sentient consciousness. She could feel the ship all around her, a living fusion of human genius and technology, so advanced it was something entirely new in the galaxy. At the tactical station, Commander David Chun's mind was linked directly to weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics. At 42, he was a veteran of the underground military academies. There, students didn't just study old human wars. They analyzed every alien battle they could observe, every intercepted communication. He knew Crithian tactics better than most Crithians did. He had studied their strategies, their weaknesses, their every move for decades. His fingers danced across holographic controls, arming systems that had been tested millions of times in simulations, but never in reality. Until now. A message broadcast from the Tempest Wrath, on all frequencies, in perfect Crithian. Captain Stone's voice was as cold and hard as glacial ice. This is Captain Rebecca Stone of the Terran Defense Force, commanding the Hurricane-Class Battleship Tempest Wrath. You have attacked our world without provocation. You have murdered our people. We offer you one chance to withdraw. Leave this system now, or learn why you should have chosen a different prey. Lord Commander Thaxius stared at the screen, his disbelief turning to pure rage. These primitives dared to threaten him? The Crithian Dominion had conquered worlds when humans were still huddling in caves. He turned to his weapons officer, fury burning in his eyes. All ships, battle formation. Target that abomination and reduce it to atoms. Show these apes what happens when they defy the Dominion. The Crithian fleet moved with deadly precision, forming a sphere of attack around the massive human ship. Plasma cannons charged, missiles armed, graviton beams focused. They had destroyed larger targets. They had crushed countless civilizations. This would be no different. Or so they thought. Rebecca felt the enemy targeting Locke's paint her ship. Through the neural link, she could sense every enemy vessel, as if they were insects crawling on her own skin. She took a slow, steadying breath. Humanity had hidden in the dark for so long, preparing, waiting for this very moment to step into the light and show the galaxy who they truly were. That moment had arrived. She opened a channel to the entire ship, her voice reaching thousands of crew members who had spent their entire lives training for this single day. All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. Prepare to engage. Today, we show them that Earth is not a world to be conquered. Today, we teach the galaxy that humanity does not kneel. Today, we become the storm they will remember until the stars grow cold. Fire when ready. The space between Earth and the fleet erupted. But this was not the one-sided slaughter the Crithians expected. As their weapons fired, reality itself seemed to turn against them. And for the first time in his very long life, Lord Commander Thaxius felt true fear. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more epic tales from across the galaxy. See you in the next one. The first volley from the Crithian fleet should have been devastating. 170 warships, all firing at once. A force that could vaporize a small moon, turn asteroids into glowing gas clouds. A force that should have overwhelmed any defense through sheer, concentrated fury. The plasma bolts streaked through the blackness of space like emerald lightning, converging on the human battleship, the Tempest Wrath, from every possible angle. Aboard the Crithian command ship, Lord Commander Thaxius watched with grim satisfaction. He was already composing the report in his mind, detailing how quickly this primitive, upstart resistance had been crushed. But the bolts never reached their target. 300 meters from the Tempest Wrath's hull, they just stopped. The ship was protected by quantum-locked armor, a revolutionary technology that existed in multiple dimensions at the same time. It created a barrier that conventional weapons simply couldn't penetrate. The plasma dissipated harmlessly against invisible walls of folded spacetime, its energy bleeding away into dimensional pockets where it would decay into nothingness. From the Crithian perspective, it looked like a sudden, dramatic, but utterly ineffective rainstorm striking an unbreakable umbrella. Deep within the ship's core, Engineer Patricia Wells monitored the shield systems. Her neural interface fed her a constant stream of real-time data about energy distribution and dimensional stability. She was 51 years old, born on Earth's surface, but had volunteered for the deep construction projects when she was barely 18. She had 3 daughters, all serving on this very ship, each trained in systems that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Through her direct connection to the ship, She could feel the enemy fire washing over the shields, like ocean waves against an ancient cliff. She was unimpressed. The attack was insufficient. It was irrelevant. On the bridge, Captain Stone watched the useless display of enemy firepower. She allowed the Crithians 5 full seconds to realize their mistake. 5 seconds for doubt to creep into their certainty. 5 seconds for fear to replace their arrogant confidence. Then she gave the order that would reshape galactic politics for generations. Commander Chun, return fire. Show them what real power looks like. The Tempest Wrath's primary weapons came online with a sound that wasn't just noise. It was a vibration that resonated through multiple dimensions, a frequency that made the fabric of reality itself shudder. The gravidometric cannons, weapons that manipulated gravity on a localized scale, fired their first shots in combat. Invisible beams of compressed gravitational force lanced out from the battleship, striking 12 Crithian vessels at the same time. The effects were immediate and horrifying. The targeted ships began to collapse inward on themselves, their hulls crumpling like paper in a crushing fist. Gravity increased to impossible levels within a sphere around each vessel, pulling everything toward a central point with irresistible force. Metal screamed as it was compressed. The atmosphere inside the ships ignited from the immense pressure. The Crithian warriors aboard were crushed into paste before they could even register what was happening. Within 3 seconds, 12 proud warships were reduced to 12 tiny spheres of supercompressed matter, each one barely a meter across, glowing white-hot from the released energy. Lieutenant James Park felt the ship shudder as the weapons discharged, a testament to the enormous power flowing through its conduits. Through his own neural link, he could sense his crewmates throughout the vessel, hundreds of minds working in perfect harmony to operate this incredible instrument of war. There was no celebration, no savage joy in the destruction they had just caused, only a grim determination and the cold satisfaction of a job performed with absolute precision. They had trained for this. They were ready for this, and they would see it through to whatever end awaited them. Lord Commander Thaxius watched in abject horror as 12 of his ships were simply erased from existence. In 5,000 years of Crithian expansion, nothing like this had ever happened. His fleet had always seemed invincible, their technology superior to anything the galaxy could throw at them. Yet here was a species that had barely left its own solar system, wielding weapons that defied everything he knew about warfare. His hands trembled as he gripped his command console, barking orders into his communicator. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Spread formation. Focus fire on a single point. We must overwhelm their defenses. But the Tempest Wrath was not finished demonstrating humanity's capabilities. The quantum cascade missiles launched next. These were weapons carrying warheads that existed in a state of superposition, flickering between matter and energy. They streaked toward the Crithian fleet at velocities that conventional sensors could barely track. When they detonated, they didn't just explode. They created cascading quantum reactions that spread through nearby ships like a virus, destabilizing molecular bonds and causing the vessels to simply come apart at the atomic level. 8 more Crithian ships disintegrated into clouds of their constituent elements, their crews never knowing what hit them. Back on Earth, Dr. Helena Voss watched the battle unfold from her control station in Antarctica. She monitored the Tempest Wrath's energy consumption and reactor stability. The ship was performing exactly as designed, every system functioning within acceptable parameters. She felt no triumph, only a deep, profound sadness that it had come to this. Humanity had tried to remain hidden. They had hoped to develop in peace. They had never wanted to become warriors. But the galaxy, it seemed, had not given them that choice. So they had adapted. They had prepared. They had built something terrible and necessary. And now the universe would learn that compassion should never be mistaken for weakness. The Crithian fleet broke formation. Ships scattered in panic, trying to escape the range of weapons that seemed to have no effective range limit. But their escape was futile. The Tempest Wrath moved with them, its displacement drives allowing it to shift position without conventional acceleration. It simply ceased to be in one location and began to be in another, quantum tunneling through space-time on a scale that should have been impossible. It appeared behind fleeing ships, beside them, above them, always in the perfect position to deliver death with cold, clinical efficiency. Commander Chun felt no hatred for the enemy as he targeted and destroyed vessel after vessel. He understood the Crithians were simply following their nature, doing what they had always done, conquering. But nature could be changed. Species could learn. And sometimes the lesson had to be written in blood and fire before it would be understood. His weapons found their marks with perfect accuracy, each shot calculated by computers that could process more data in a microsecond than the entire Crithian fleet combined. 93 ships destroyed, 107 attempting to flee. The Tempest Wrath could have pursued them all, could have hunted them through the solar system until not one survived. But that was not the message humanity wanted to send. Captain Stone opened a communication channel, her voice broadcasting across the void to the terrified warriors who had never known defeat until this day. Survivors of the Crithian Dominion, hear me. Return to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is protected by power they cannot imagine. Tell them that humanity will not be enslaved, will not be conquered, will not bow to any force in this galaxy. And tell them that if they come again, they will not find mercy. We did not seek this war, but we will end any war that comes to us. Go now. Carry our message. Let the galaxy know that a new power has awakened. Lord Commander Thaxius, his flagship crippled and drifting, listened to the transmission with the bitter taste of absolute defeat in his mouth. His long, storied career had ended not in glory, but in total humiliation. The primitive humans had crushed his fleet as easily as stepping on insects. He gave the order to retreat, watching as his surviving ships activated their hyperspace drives and fled into the vast darkness between stars. They would carry the tale back to the Dominion. They would speak of the terror they had witnessed. And the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. As the last Crithian ship vanished into hyperspace, the Tempest Wrath hung in silent orbit above Earth, a guardian keeping watch over the world that had built it. Far below, in the deep places where humanity had hidden and worked for so long, celebrations began. They were not celebrations of violence or conquest, but of relief. Relief that the plan had worked, that their sacrifice had not been in vain, that Earth and all its people would live to see another day. They had been tested by fire and had emerged stronger. They had faced the darkness and brought their own light. And now, as word spread through the galaxy about what had transpired in the Sol system, humanity prepared for whatever would come next, ready to defend their home against any threat. Forever vigilant, forever prepared, forever free. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tailies from across the cosmos. We'll see you in the next one.